Good evening. Would you join me for the invocation and pledge of allegiance, please? Our Father, we come to you this evening asking for your grace and your mercy and asking for you to watch over us as we do the business of the city. We ask that you watch over and protect our firemen and policemen who are out on Rosemar Road over the wreck, and that you'll watch over our city and keep us out of harm's way. Be with our soldiers, and please let us remember 9/11 on Friday and all that it means to us, and help us as we gather our thoughts and keep us moving forward. In his name we pray, and amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first thing that we're going to do this evening is Chief Pfeiffer is going to speak to us for a few minutes about the plan that we're going to put in place for our buildings.
So I talked with the mayor. I don't know if everyone knows, but Tuesday evening we had a scary incident here in the city of Vienna at the fire department. And after what happened, I had talked with the mayor, and we had discussed some things we probably should be doing and that we're capable of doing. So if you recognize or see some heightened security measures, even during council or our municipal court, that's the reason why. So it's not targeted at any individual here, and I think I know everyone almost in this room. But it's something I think we should be doing. And we want a safe place for you to meet, for us to be here, for council, for our municipal judge and whatnot. So I just wanted to announce that here, I think, because that does affect all of us. It's a minor inconvenience, but we will be doing something probably here in the near future. So if somebody has a question for me, I'll be happy to maybe answer it while I'm up here. But the incident that happened over there, and I won't go into a lot of details, but from what I know now, it was probably meant to happen in this very room. So it's just a matter of fact that this place was locked up earlier, and that's where ultimately that issue was headed, was right here. So I think it's something that we should do, something we're capable of, and we just want to make a safe place for everybody. So.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Okay, all right.
Jack Mathers, let's go ahead and unveil your presentation.
Oh, okay, all right. I guess the best way to open up, you see the big blue object here in the room. It's pretty hard to miss. Some time ago, some of us on the Tree and Beautification Commission were talking about some of the different things that are missing in Vienna that other communities have. And one of the things, when I tell you about it, you're going to say, you know what, he's right, we never thought about that. You know the big historic signs that the state does where they do the markers, the state highway markers, and they started in about 1960. It was kind of amazing to us when we talked about it that Vienna had never applied for one, but you had to go through West Virginia Archives and History at Charleston, submit your history and get approval, and it was quite a process. And so what we're going to unveil is the culmination of some work. A lot of it was done by Joyce McDougall, who's on our board. Joyce went to Marietta College. Marietta College worked with us. She went into the library at Marietta College, into the basement. A lady down there was very helpful. Some of the information, when you see the sign, there's going to be some things missing. If I can just have a second after I show it, just to tell a couple things about it, if that would be all right. So, here we go. one of the things you're going to notice right off that comes up is the city of Vienna. Where did the city of Vienna get its name from? And you will not see it on that sign because it was one of the things that Marietta worked with us on. Ray Swick, we talked with him, we've talked with other people trying to determine where actually, and there's a lot of hyperbole about where Vienna's name came from, but nothing that we could document. So we only put on the sign what we actually knew. It's, I don't know if many of you know it or not, but I'm going to tell you a real quick history. Vienna is the oldest city in Wood County, and Vienna is older than Wood County. This area was actually Harrison County when Vienna was founded in 1774, and then Wood County came in around the 1800s, and that's when Wood County and what was then considered Newport, where Parkersburg was actually called Newport. It wasn't Parkersburg. And they went together, banded together with a lot of the little communities down there and formed what was the city of Parkersburg. And then in 1800, they were named the county seat of the area. But wonderful history for Vienna from Dr. John Briscoe, who was the first person, came in here in 1773, left shortly thereafter. They believe he was chased out by numerous Indian incursions on his property up around 60th Street. A lot of different history was that said Briscoe was actually a trading post up there. Some history books tell you that Briscoe was a fort up there, and none of those are true. Just Dr. John Briscoe lived there, and there's actually records by parties going down the river, seeing the family, and different stories. And then the founder with Joseph Spencer, Dr. Joseph Spencer, and so there it is. So now we will be getting this sign installed to be on Grand Central Avenue, somewhere close to Vienna Baptist Church, right there where the parking lot is, where we have another big project that we're really appreciating council's help in the future on a big project we're going to be doing right there at the lot that you see the orange markers right by the parking lot and the church. And it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful project addition to Vienna. And people will be able to pull over, and the history of Vienna is going to be located right there. There's going to be a lot of history located under a pavilion, and it's going to be an excellent, great place to walk Vienna from. And so, you know, there it is. You can be proud of your sign. We got a sign. We're right up there with Big Elm, West Virginia right now. So Big Elm, by the way, in case you wondered, got their sign Big Elm because there was actually a big elm tree. Kind of ironic, I know. And that's why they were called Big Elm. So there you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack.
We'll now move on to our public forum. We have 4 people that have signed up to speak this evening. Greg Frazier is first.
Good evening. My name is Greg Frazier. I live at 1210 22nd Street. I'm here tonight to condemn the action and inaction of members of this council at the August 28th meeting of this council. It was obvious to those in the chambers as well as those of us watching live stream that Mr. Rogers went off the rail in his verbal assault of Mr. Elam. The mayor was derelict in his duty as presiding officer of council, failing to recognize Mr. Elam's point of view and letting the assault to continue. One would have to conclude that the mayor approved of that verbal assault on Mr. Elam. Let's not forget the city attorney. He was derelict as well by not advising the mayor of the point of order dictates that debate or a speaker is to be interrupted as the chair rules on the point of order. The city attorney has interjected himself many times in the last 4 years of my attending council meetings to help council better understand an issue. But total silence on August the 28th, which leads me to believe that he too enjoyed the verbal assault on Mr. Elam. Mr. Rogers, you owe Mr. Elam a public apology for your outburst. Mr. Mayor and Mr. City Attorney, you both owe Mr. Elam a public apology for your inaction. And Mr. Elam, don't hold your breath for an apology. I certainly hope that the next council will adopt and follow the rules, Robert's Rules of Order. I request that my comments be added to the minutes of this meeting. As I told you 4 years ago, I'm watching you. Let me close by saying what the watchdog of the city of Vienna, the late Lawrence Wilson, always said at the end of his blog. Enough said.
Henry Sossin.
Henry Sasson, 1307 Greenmont Hills, Vienna. I got two things to go over real quick. Number one is there's a elder lady on 55th Street. She lives at, I believe it's 510, and there's a big cement slab that's sort of like elevated. Every time a vehicle goes across it, you can feel the vibrations inside of her house. If somebody from the city can look at that, that'd be great. Number two part of that whole equation is the house right next to it. It's like white. It's vacated. No one's been living in there for a while. The cats are going in and out through broken windows into the basement. There's no electric. The people that were gonna live there said they couldn't because there's mold. So something needs to be done with that property too. I think that's between 510 and 516, so I don't know where 512 is, or maybe it's 514, I don't know. But it's white, okay? The other thing is, through the debate that was happening last couple times with vehicles, I am an owner of a golf cart. I have been. I got it for my kids years ago. I checked, it was 5 years ago in fact, with the police chief at the time. He says, yes, it's doable. I checked with the mayor, yes, it's doable. So I ended up buying it because it's not cheap to do. So back then, through all these years, I have insurance on it. People in council were saying that it's probably $400 or $500. Well, it's not. You can see the total cost for a full year is $44.85. Okay? So before we start scaring people about the cost of things, this is facts, not hearsay. And just to show it, you get one of these things too, just like you have for your car or your truck or whatever. So if anybody wants a golf cart, I'm gonna be selling it because my kids are 16 and they can't drive it with the new rules. It's slightly used. You know where I live. Thank you.
Jack Heater.
Good evening. My name is Jack Heater, 4301 Sandalwood Place. This is my fourth time to appear before this council for the very same reason. 4 times. Started 1 year ago. That's about dogs running at large. Can't even take a walk in the evening without being greeted by or ungreeted by someone's dog. Now, if you all remember, you promised me 3 times that when this newsletter come out, Mr. Mayor, you said you would have that reminder to put in this newsletter for the public to know that. 3 newsletters have come out since then, and it hasn't been in there. I can only assume that it's not an urgent problem for you or the council. However, rest assured, if me or my grandchildren get attacked by one of these dogs running at large, you, as well as that owner, will be seeing an attorney. Because I think 1 year without inaction is not acceptable at all. Now, how hard is it to have whoever prints this newsletter, Mr. Mayor? And we can go back and look at the record. You promised, you said, Jack, it was my mistake, I should have had it done. Well, you made a mistake again, sir, because it is not in here. So that's my 4th time. This will be my last time for this reason. There are other recourses that I'm planning on taking if it's not addressed. Next thing, if you look at under your code 507.01, it definitely spells out what at large means. You have very good ordinances, but you have no regulations. You have nobody enforcing them. You don't even have an animal control officer. And let me read what an animal control officer is. This is also in your ordinance. It's 50707. The mayor shall be the animal officer of the city. Doesn't say police chief, doesn't say fire chief, it says the mayor. That's your own ordinance. I'm reading it word for word. However, it goes on to give you an out, where the consent of the council authorizes the director to employ the Humane Society. If that is being done, evidently the Humane Society isn't upholding their end of the code. If we're paying them anything to do it, if we are, you call the police department. They're really nice, but they're busy. They don't have time to chase dogs. Unfortunately, they're over here at the firehouse on a life and death situation. But if we could just remind the public, how hard is it to put it in a newsletter or make an announcement to, hey, your dog's running at large? How hard is it to get a hold of the Humane Society? That's who we're told to call. Do they show up? Usually not. If it's a night, weekends, holidays, you just might as well not even make the phone call because they won't be there. Perhaps it's time we look at hiring a part-time, again, it's in your ordinance. You have the authority to hire a part-time animal control person. It's right in there. Tells you how much to pay them, how much you can't pay them, how much the call is. So perhaps that's something you may want to consider. Because rest assured, if something unfortunately would happen to me or my family, you will see me back. Thank you.
Brenda Powell.
Good evening. My name is Brenda Powell. I live at 1409 31st Street in Vienna. I wanted to address something with council for a moment. It's in regards to the 1% sales tax. The issue that I have with everything is that we haven't, as the public, been informed of where we are regarding our revenue with that 1% sales tax in the public. I'm really surprised that no one on council has even addressed it or had said anything about it. And actually, even in the newspaper had asked, and there weren't any figures given, only that it was stated that the city is fine, going to do fine. And that is the hopes for everything. I wish that it would be more transparency as far as giving information to the public. I did go on the West Virginia state tax website actually and retrieved the quarterly sales and use tax distributions. It states here that from January to March in 2020, the distribution month as of April 2020 was $950,225.19. You go on to April through June 2020, and it states that there's $782,811.55. That's a difference of $167,413.64. There would like to be an explanation. I mean, as far as a discussion or something, or even in the treasure report, when it's given. It does state in the codified ordinances 111.03, it has listed in the ordinance as treasurer's monthly report. And it says the treasurer shall report to council monthly the total receipts and expenditures of each fund for the preceding month. It's just important that the public know what's going on and what the projection is for our city coming up, because per Parkersburg already has addressed this. And I think that it would be good if Vienna would do this. You know, go ahead and give the projection of what they see coming down the road for the city. So that is what I wanted to bring forth before council, and hopefully we can, you know, get that information. Thank you so much.
I have a proclamation to read. This is a proclamation for Constitution Week. Whereas September 17th, 2020 marks the 233rd anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Continental Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebration which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now therefore I, Randall C. Rapp, by virtue of the authority vested in me as Mayor of the City of Vienna in the state of West Virginia, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution, had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained. In witness thereof I have hereunto set my name and hand, and caused the seal of the City of Vienna to be affixed this 10th day of September of the year of our Lord 2020. I think the Constitution of our country is probably one of the most well-read, well-known documents of our country, and I think we all should remember that as a guideline for how we go about our business. I'd like to call to order this regular session of the Vienna City Council for September the 10th, 2020. Let the record reflect that I've taken roll, that all members of council are present. Having a quorum, we will proceed. The report of the minutes from the regular council meeting held on August the 27th, 2020 have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If there are no objections, then the minutes will stand approved as posted. Report of the treasurer, Councilman Leach.
Yeah, Mayor, I performed a reconciliation of funds dated September 5th, 2020. I reviewed the accounts, including all departments of the city. The accounts appear in order, and the city is fiscally sound.
Thank you. We have one item under unfinished business this evening. That's an ordinance on second reading, amending and reenacting certain building codes, as well as adopting State Fire Commission Energy Rule Title 87, Series 4, known as 87 CSR 4. Mr. Conley, you weren't here last week when we or 2 weeks ago when we did the first reading. Have you brought yourself up to speed on this, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right, fine. Then I'll read it by title only. This is an ordinance amending and reenacting certain building codes, as well as adopting State Fire Commission Energy Rule Title 87, Series 4, 87 CSR 4. Be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that the State Fire Commission Rule Title 87, Series 4, 87 CSR 4, in effect as of August 1st, 2020, and also referred to as the State Building Code, a copy of which is attached for further reference, is hereby adopted, amended, and reenacted in full with the exceptions set out herein below. I'll entertain a motion on second reading for the ordinance amending and reenacting certain building codes.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt on second reading an ordinance amending and reenacting certain building codes. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Under new business, the first item on our agenda this evening is a bid approval for the police department for 2021 cruisers. Councilman Leach.
Sealed bids for the purchase of two 2021 Ford Interceptor utility vehicles were opened on August 28, 2020 at 10:30 a.m. with the following results. Astorg Ford, $67,956. Matheny Motors, $70,352. Stevens Auto, $67,850. After a careful review of the bid proposals, the recommendation for council approval from the Budget and Finance Committee for two Ford Interceptor utility vehicles is Stevens Auto with the low bid of $67,850. Funding for the project will be from the city's general fund pending council approval, and the amount for the funding of the request will be put out for sealed bid at a later time.
All right. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the low bid from Stevens Automotive for the purchase of two 2021 Ford Interceptor utility vehicles
So moved.
for the police department.
Second, is that?
Jim, are you moving that?
Yes.
Okay, you're a second.
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded that we accept the low bid from Stevens Automotive for the purchase of two 2021 Ford Interceptor utility vehicles for the police department. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the low bid from Stevens Automotive for $67,850, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Chief, it's going to be a long time before we get those, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard to project, so there's a lot of stuff that go on before that. Usually it's months after this part of the process.
Okay, thank you. The second item on our agenda this evening is a bid approval for the painting of the senior center. Councilman Leach.
Sealed bids for the interior and exterior painting of the Vienna Senior Center were opened on August 28, 2020 at 10 a.m. with the following results. Terry Hanlon, $21,480, incomplete bid. Tim Batten Construction, $22,890, which was also an incomplete bid. American Star Painting and Coatings at $16,305. After a careful review of the bid proposals, the recommendation for council approval from the Budget and Finance Committee for the interior and exterior painting of the Vienna Senior Center is American Star Painting and Coatings in the amount of $16,305. Funding for this project will be from the city's general fund pending council approval.
I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the low bid from American Star Painting and Coatings in the amount of $16,305 for the painting of the interior and exterior of the Vienna Senior Center.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the low bid from American Star Painting for the painting of the interior and exterior of the Vienna Senior Center. Is there any further discussion?
Was this
Just
a
a
budgeted
question.
item in the general fund?
It
That
is.
was my
I'm sorry.
question too.
It is.
Okay, what department, what line item, where's that? Because I looked and I couldn't find it. Can you tell me where that's at in there, please?
I believe it's under the senior center, but Roger, I don't have that budget in front of me, but
But it is budgeted and it is a budget line item.
yes, sir.
Okay. Do we recall what the budget number was?
I do not, sir. Any further discussion? And I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the low bid from American Star Painting for $16,305 for the painting of the interior and exterior of the Vienna Senior Center, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. The next item on our agenda this evening is an ordinance on first reading, amending Vienna Municipal Code 907.18, dealing with dead or diseased tree removal on private property. Jack Mathers, would you come in, please? Jack is our city forester, and would you explain what the change on this language is?
We're not really eliminating anything. All we're doing is adding into it the structural soundness or structural integrity of a tree just by the very nature of the tree or by the species. It can have some problems that would inherently pose a risk to the public, or a risk in splitting, basically, and that hasn't been in there. A tree could be alive, not dead, dying, or diseased, but structurally not safe. So that's all we're doing, is adding a structural component in there.
Okay?
So
Thank you.
what happens, what happens if it is?
What happens if it is? If it's got a structural problem, then it follows in under the ordinance where we can have the tree removed.
On us, or the,
Anything that affects a public safety hazard.
there's been a lot of tree trimming in the city over the last few weeks, and you're probably totally aware of that. I mean, I can take you to several places right now, Jack, where there were pretty significant sized limbs trimmed. And I think most of it is actually for the power company,
Yeah, that's right.
is my understanding. But when you look at some of these trees that have been trimmed and some of these large branches, once they're cut off, there's holes in some of them this big. So, these trees have been apparently rotting from the inside out, it is my guess. But seeing these trees, I'm just curious, should they still be allowed to stand? I mean, there's one right up here on the corner of 8th Avenue and 28th Street that, there's probably only that much limb around the circumference with a humongous rotted out hole where they cut the limb off. But I guess my question is, should these trees be addressed or just?
Each one has to be addressed. I mean, it just doesn't get covered under a blanket thing. Each tree has to be looked at individually on something like that. One of the things you have to consider is what to target, and then you prioritize the trees as far as removal based on what the targets are. Is it going to hit a city street? Is it, a traveled area? Is it going to fall in a wooded area versus a public area, even though it's on public property? So there's just a lot of things to consider. We can't go in and remove everything.
No, I understand that. I was just
But yeah, Roger,
curious as to what happens to these trees, I guess, is my question. So,
they reach a point where they've got to be removed. I mean, a tree can be hollow for quite a period of time. There's no set limit on the time that a tree can be hollow and still stand, But then you look at it and you go, okay, what kind of a risk does this pose, and what's the targets, what to be considered, and you start considering that on the removals.
and those are on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, it has to be. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the tree on 38th Street's a good example, Jack, or 38th or 37th, whichever one that was. The bigger that was in between the yards.
Oh, yeah.
That was 38th, I believe, wasn't it,
38th
Jack?
Street.
Yeah.
And that was a tree that had structural components where it was splitting. I mean, the homeowner was putting a strap around the tree and trying to strap the tree back together and to hold it to keep it from splitting. And, good gosh, a
Probably
swing
lost,
set,
didn't it?
Swing set in one backyard with kids playing in it, a guy's air conditioner in this yard, a fence in this yard. And that's, private property, but it's a public safety hazard. We've had issues where, there's been trees that you got to consider the front sidewalk of a house. If you've got the mailman making deliveries and city streets, so there's just a lot to consider on things.
Jack, when you get a moment and you have time, would you take a look at that tree at 28th and 8th Avenue?
28th and 8th, sure.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jack.
Oh, you're welcome.
This is an ordinance amending Vienna Municipal Code 907.18, dead or diseased tree removal on private property. Be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that 907.18A is amended as followed. 907.18, dead or diseased tree removal on private property. The Vienna Tree and Beautification Commission or the city shall have the right to cause the removal of any dead, dying, diseased, or structurally unsound tree on public or private property within the city limits when such tree constitute a hazard to the public health, safety, and welfare. I'll entertain a motion for approval on first reading of this ordinance.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the ordinance amending Vienna Municipal Code 907.18A. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor on first reading of the ordinance amending Vienna Municipal Code 907.18A, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. The last item on our agenda this evening is an ordinance on first reading. This is the ordinance that we do every year, approving the replacement pages to the codified ordinances. These changes are due to the legislation that's came through City Council and the changes based on the state legislature and the rules that they've changed dealing with various items. Mr. Skogstad, would you read this, please, down to the traffic code, sir?
An ordinance to approve the 2020 replacement pages to the codified ordinances. Whereas certain provisions within the codified ordinances should be amended to conform with current state law, and whereas various ordinances of a general and permanent nature have been passed by council which should be included in the codified ordinances, and whereas council has heretofore entered into a contract with the Walter H. Drain Company to prepare and publish such revision, which is before council. Now therefore be it ordained by council of the City of Vienna that Section 1, the ordinances of the City of Vienna, West Virginia, of a general and permanent nature is revised, recodified, rearranged, and consolidated into component codes, chapters, articles, and sections within the 2020 replacement pages to the codified ordinances are hereby approved and adopted. Section 2, the following section and articles are hereby added, amended, or repealed as respectively indicated in order to comply with current state law. And it goes through and lists the various codes that we're adopting that mirror West Virginia state statute.
I'll entertain a motion for approval on first reading, an ordinance to approve the 2020 replacement pages to the codified ordinances.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the ordinance on first reading to approve the 2020 replacement pages to the codified ordinances. Are there any discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. That concludes our agenda for this evening. We now move on to council comments.
Yes, Mayor. Going forward, and tonight's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. And I'm talking about the painting on the senior building. When we do the bid approval, I'd like to have a little bit more information when we do that approval, such as what department it was budgeted in, what the line number was that it was budgeted within, and what the amount of that budget was, so that when we compare the bid, we're comparing the bid with the amount that was indeed budgeted. So going forward, I would like to see that be part of the process. In some situations we may remember what those budgeted items was. It's a long time ago. I don't remember all of them, but I think it would be good if I was reminded of that. And there again, I'm talking about just having total transparency. The other item that I would like to bring up, I would like to have on the next meeting agenda an in-depth conversation about the Johns Manville project. I think we've got a pretty good handle on the lower side. I think we're pretty much coming to a completion there, just kind of waiting on some paperwork is my understanding. I'm more talking about the upper side, and that's the side where we're going to potentially be looking at a return on our investment if there is one. We need to be looking at such things as, how many acres are there up there that we can at some point in time look at as some economic development. Let's consider the fact that the remediation has been done, what the value of that property per acre is going to be, you know, how we're gonna go to market with it, what kind of market studies we might be able to do to see that we get the most bang for our buck. Just an awful lot of things there that I think we need to start focusing on. It's been 4 years now, and really I don't have any better handle on it as a councilman as far as what we're going to do to get that return on our investment today than I had 4 years ago. And there again, the return on our investment has to be on the upper side. The bottom side is pretty much going to be the city of Vienna utilization. So that's something that I think all of us need to come prepared to talk about, and let's start looking and focusing on an area. And I know we've talked about having public meetings, but that pertains, in my opinion, to the lower side. You know, whether we're going to put in boat docks or walking paths or whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what we see as the potential for economic development and marketing of the upper parcel.
Any other comments? I have one. A lot of you all that are in this room tonight are running for some sort of office. Just a word of caution. Some of the signs that have been put out in locations around the city are on state property. The Department of Highways will take your signs. If you find some of your signs are missing, they probably haven't been stolen, but they're probably down at behind the Department of Motor Vehicles at the State Road Garage. They have a big warehouse down there that they put those things in. So if you have signs that come up missing, I would say probably take a look down there and see if you can find them. The other thing that I would caution you about is some of you all have put yours at intersections of roads. You need to make sure that they're back far enough that they do not impede the vision of someone pulling out. You want to make sure that no one has a wreck just because your sign wouldn't let them see it come out. So at this time, what I would like to do is, if you're running for an office, whether it be a state office, a county office, or a city office, if you would please stand and tell us your name and what office you are running for, if you care to do that.
I guess I'll go first. My name is Kim Williams. I'm running for Vienna City Council.
Henry Sasson, Vienna City Council.
Mike Smith, Mayor.
Okay.
Roger Conley, House of Delegates, District 10.
All right. Everyone else that's up at the table is running for something except for Mr. Skogstad.
Run for the door.
And he is not on the ballot.
Yeah, Jim Leach, City Council.
Okay. All right. The next regular council session is scheduled for September the 24th, 2020 at 7 p.m.